3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Lightforge. This is Adbukta.
This is Merps. Hope you guys are all doing well. Let's talk some arena again.
Yeah, back to arena.
Back to arena.
We're going to talk about BGs too. We're just catching us up because we didn't really talk too much about the specific upcoming patch, which is now the patch before, and then there was a update. After that, there was a keep trying to say micro adjust. There was an offering odds adjustment update that totally changed the arena class balance, although not really the arena itself, at least not until you get to the high wins. So we'll talk about that. But first, I want to give a shout out at the top of the podcast to our top patrons of June. Thank you guys so much. RV Night Train, Yin, 15 Gold Cringe, Eric L, Aaron LS, Dan F, Doug A, Karova, REG, 4P, and Brand New. Thank you guys so much for supporting the GOAT on Patreon. We have a Patreon, if you guys don't know. It's patreon.com/grinninggoat. And we're in a bit of a GOAT financial, not bankruptcy, just like temporarily not having any money. Because we bought new computers at the top of the market.
Yeah, we could have waited until crypto tanked. But
we didn't know that we could time the market by just waiting 2 weeks.
We bought at the absolute top. We didn't buy this was basically us buying into crypto at the very top without buying into crypto at the very top.
Yep.
Because yes.
Yep. So, I mean, it's only a few $100s down the drain. But everything's backed up anyway, so if we canceled it now, we wouldn't get our computers for like 2-3 more months, and I just don't want to wait for that. So we're going through with it. But yeah, thank you guys so much. This year, we expect to not make any money on the GOAT at all. We're just hoping to be able to earn enough income that we can write off this entire purchase. And we're also getting a monitor upgrade too. And we're just hoping to be able to write off this entire thing along with all of our other expenses and like be able to do that without having to depreciate our computers, which is what we did last time. But hopefully we earn enough money now compared to, a couple months after streaming to be able to do that. That's our whole goal. Our whole goal is to get to 0. So please support our goals and, give us a Twitch sub, give us a patron if you don't watch us on Twitch. It would be really helpful, especially this year. Yeah. That's my pitch. And once again, thank you guys, all of our top patrons who've been with us, most of them for a really long time, and a super big welcome to the new patrons as well.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
All
we
right.
need our rigs to play D2 Resurrected at the highest of levels.
I'm not even kidding. Our current rigs are below spec for recommended for D2 Resurrected. For Diablo 2, our current rigs. We've had this since we started streaming, basically.
They did put a shiny new coat on it, and they wanted to make sure that shiny new coat was a good shiny coat.
Okay.
And it looks to be a very good shiny coat.
It is,
although, yes.
It is still a game that runs on 24 frames per second, pretty much.
Yeah. Yes, it ticks at 24 times per second, but a lot more is happening with the game itself, right? Like, yes.
Yeah. With the animations and the graphics and all that.
It's adhering to the... Wait, it wasn't 25. We had this discussion.
Oh, yeah, maybe it was 24. Yeah, it's 25. You're right.
It's 25. You keep on saying 24 for some reason.
You're right. It's 25.
But yes.
But yeah, that's when I realized we needed to upgrade now. Not just because Diablo 2 Resurrected is coming out and we want to play it, and we want to play it on 4K. But also because I just feel really bad being a professional or a semi-professional streamer and having a computer that can't run Diablo 2. Not can't stream Diablo 2, can't run Diablo 2, not on max, on recommended specs. That was the wake-up call that we really needed to get this new computer upgrade. We've been streaming for, I think, 7 years now, and we've had this computer for like 6. So it's done its job. It was mid level when we bought it, but definitely way out of date now. Uh, I remember we sent over the specs to Cass, and then Cass was like, "What? Really? I didn't know your computer was so bad." I was like, Cass, you've been with us too long. You don't even remember how long you've been with us. We have not upgraded our computer.
Yeah, it's been quite a while. So, this is definitely necessary. Right before we're getting in right under D2, right
Mm-hmm.
under Diablo 4 when it releases 2 years from
Okay, I
now,
was about to
hopefully.
say that's not right under. That's like, in the middle of a computer's lifespan.
Yeah, can finally play Crisis.
No, no, we
So,
can't. Yeah. So this patch, there is a patch. Let's talk about the patch first, and then talk about the arena adjustments afterwards. The patch did basically two things for Battlegrounds, and then something for Wild. I don't know. But one of the things it did for Battlegrounds is Flat Tusk is now 4 gold instead of 3 gold. Every 4 gold, you get a blood gem instead of every 3 gold.
yep.
And the other change is Kangor went from tier 6 to tier 5 and 4-8 to 3-6.
Yeah. So they want to shake it up a little bit. Even though Quillbores were not in every single game, we discussed this with Shady previously as well, where he was basically saying games with Quillbores feel fundamentally different from games without Quillbores because Quillbores and their scaling, really, Flat Tusk was a little bit too good. It was too powerful. Flat
Mm-hmm.
Tusk, Agam, or you just kind of can put Flat Tusk and just do your normal thing, and you can just get these blood gems. And even if you don't have like a an Agam or even a Quillbore centric board, it was just a little bit too good. You just got like a lot of stats that you can put wherever you wanted, and they wanted to limit this. Now, has it really changed? Like completely shaken up the meta? It hasn't completely shaken up the meta. Um, if you still have, the Agam, if blood gems are still good for you, then Flat Tusk is still good for you. But they wanted to dampen it a little bit. It's basically what they've been doing with Quillbore since Quillbores have come out. They
Mm-hmm.
just want to make the cost a little bit higher. They don't want to make it so universally good. It's like they don't want you to buy the banner board when you don't have anything else because pre-nerf, a tier 3 2 5 was still okay. It was still like okay. And now there's a real cost if you don't have any boards. They want it to be somewhat more of a cost. You have to basically commit a little bit more into it. So that's what we see here. Flat Tusk is still good. You're still going to take it a decent amount of times. So it's a small change. We'll see how the meta exactly shakes out. I think a lot of people aren't exactly worried. Well, like the attention has turned to Guff. Like Guff right now is really, really powerful as a hero. So I think a lot of people are trying to figure out ways to potentially solve or like solve the Guff Hook Tusk problem. And they're like, well, is it a problem? Is it not a problem? We can save that for another time. But that's Flat Tusk. As for Kangors, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't really seen like any difference. It is easier to do that kind of Baron, Death Rattle,
Yeah.
Sneeds, Kangors, survive a little bit more. So sure, it has some applicability there, but that was never a big part of it in terms of a game winning meta, and it's very specific. So it hasn't shaken up the meta too much. If you are looking to come back and you played a little bit of the previous meta, uh, you'll see that not much has changed. What has changed, really, because of the Flat Tusk nerf, is the end game huge scaling potential. So when you're getting into like the turn 12, 13, 14, like let's say the game goes to there, then these Flat Tusk builds are not getting as much stats as they were before.
Sounds good. Yeah, didn't seem like that big of a change, but I do like that they moved Kangor down. That felt like something that needed to be done. I never understood why it was so high for so long. Like that was a relic of the power level of the game when it initially launched. And
Yeah, and Kangor's was always a super disappointing tier 6, as in it was worse than when it was bad, it was the absolute worst. At least Zap had some not only tech situations where it was useful, but tempo wise, it was better than Kangor's as well. Especially if you fail in tearing up to a 6 and you get something like a Zap, you can at least think, okay, well, this can kill their Charlga, Lightfang, Bran, their scaling units, like the small scaling units, whatever they have, it can kill or reset maybe. So it has applicability there. Whereas if you tripled into a Kangor and that was one of your picks, that was a non-pick. It was an actual non-pick too often. So I do like this change. I like how it also buffs up tier 5 a little bit. You can try to stay alive with the Sneeds and Kangors and Baron. So it definitely improves tier 5 a little bit. Nothing huge for this patch, but if you're picking up what I'm saying, these are all things that we have identified as issues in Battlegrounds. So they address it slightly. It's not earth shattering, but it does help these problems a little bit.
All right, that's Battlegrounds. Now moving on to Arena. The balance patch is here. They took a little bit of time with it, but they probably needed to get some data. It wasn't too late. I think from the launch of the mini set, it was about like 2 full weeks, right? That's kind of what you expect a normal amount of time to pass. We still have, assuming they're not changing up the meta, we still have like a month and a half left of this meta. So it's a good thing that they did the fix now. They're probably not going to rebalance it again from here on out. Like maybe, but I doubt it. I feel like this is the new pattern that Blizzard's going to go. So you now have your meta set for the next month and a half. So it's a great time to dig in, get good, really learn the meta. It's also a pretty good meta. It was a surprisingly good meta, despite Demon Hunter's 58% win rate before. It was a surprisingly decent meta, and just because of the standard set and the core set are all working nicely, like a carryover from what was happening before. Basically, since the core set came out, Arena's just felt so much better, and that hasn't changed. But the nerfs came from the top. Demon Hunters are down. Also down is Shaman and Warlock.
And Paladin.
and Paladin, right? Everybody else is up except for Warrior, who was not moved. And whenever you have a class that is not moved, you know that they're going to be number 1 most likely. So Warrior is currently number 1. This change went live a little over 48 hours before when we're recording this. Maybe like 60 hours before we're recording this. So HS replay stats, which are the only stats we have available to us, look at the last 48 hours. And they did not, as they normally don't do, they did not reset all the decks. They did not retire any decks. So a lot of this data still has old decks in it. So Demon Hunter is already down from 58% to 53%, which means that it's probably going to drop down to around 50%, or maybe even a little below 50% before all this is said and done. Like that's what, like if you're drafting a Demon Hunter now, that's what you should expect the power level of Demon Hunter to be. On the other hand, Warrior's 53%, and that is probably only going to go up, but probably not by too much. So your top class being 53% is generally speaking not that bad. And all of the bad classes right now, you're a little worried about Paladin. Especially because they nerf Paladin, like actually nerf Paladin for constructed a bit during this period of adjustments. So it's unclear if their data is right or not. Also, Paladins usually favor weaker players because they're just easier to play. So for HS replay stats, which are 4.5 to 5 win players, Paladins are, like, if you actually balance Paladins, Paladin win rates are going to be a little weaker, and if you're an even better player than that, then Paladins would be even weaker. So I think that's kind of rearing its head here. But overall, what you have now is warriors. I would say it's warriors on top, and then priest druid, and then maybe demon hunter somewhere in there with priest druid, maybe a little below that, and then everybody else.
Class that you really need to watch out for in terms of rising win rate and also effect on the meta and how much you will enjoy things is Priest. Priest is right now number 3. It's going to end up higher than Demon Hunter. It just is with the way things are trending. There's like 0% chance Demon Hunter ends up higher than Priest. And when Priest is one of the best classes in Arena, it's always kind of, oh man, watch out. So as of right now, here are the stats for Priest. It has the 3 most common cards in a Priest deck are Venomous Scorpid, Draconic Studies,
and Studies. And what? Renew?
Yeah. And Renew, which, you know, like gets you Draconic Studies. It gets you Soul Mirror. It gets you whatever the heck you want. Light Bomb, right? That's in rotation right now. And Scorpid gets you Draconic Studies. It gets you the Light Bomb. It gets you the Soul Mirrors. It gets you the Apotheosis when you're about to die. It gets you all these things. So Priest is the really, really annoying class right now. And whenever Priest is number 1, or when Priest is, quote, just number 2, that's very, very problematic, and you should see Priest rise as well. Like when we get these bad Priest decks out of the way, also when these good Demon Hunter decks are completely done and washed out, really in a couple of days, I expect Priest to rise up above Demon Hunters.
Well, Demon Hunters are going down. Like Demon Hunters right now are 53%, but they're going to end up 50% highest. And Priests are already over 50%. They're at 51% right now, and they're going up, like you said.
Yeah, so Priests are going to, I think, settle in comfortably at this like number 2 spot and maybe challenge for number 1. We'll see how it goes. That's not a great thing. You guys know how much I like playing slow, grindy Priest, but when you give them too much easy outs, which is the case right now, whenever their most common cards and they have 1.3 of each of these cards in every single deck, that's really bad. That's like really, really bad in terms of you having fun being on the other side, because Priests are able to massively generate these things that are really hard to play around, because something like Soul Mirror, for instance, it's just a card that you can't play around at all. Like 99% of the time you can't play around it. Do you keep trading against Priests? If you do, you probably lose. But if you leave something up, like one thing up, then they Apotheosis, then they Psych Split, and then you lose like that as well. So I'm definitely a little bit worried about this. If you just look at the percentages right now, you're like, wow, it's 53 to 47%. And, you know, I understand that they're shifting, but this is good. This could be a good, fun meta. And this is like a hold your horses, pump the brakes kind of thing. Priest being near the top, with these cards in particular being the most common, that's very scary.
I think it's not as scary as it normally is, because the game is already there. There are so many swings in this game right now that it's already kind of baked in. Like how bad Priests were before the core set came out, whenever they were at top, I don't think we're at that same baseline anymore of how bad the same exact type of Priests are. So one, Priests are probably not going to end up at the very top. They're probably going to end up on, like you said, right, settle into the number 2 spot. But at 2, Priests are not the only class anymore that does this type of BS. Demon Hunters do this type of BS. And Demon Hunters were 57-58% win rate. And in the meta before this adjustment happened, like at the top it wasn't great. There are these annoying Demon Hunters, but it wasn't the end of the world, and that's at 57-58% win rate. So when you throw a class in that's at 52-53% win rate, with kind of the same issues as Demon Hunter, and arguably, well, I mean, not arguably, just much weaker in the beginning. So you give aggro decks kind of a chance before you kind of take over. It's not going to feel as bad as it felt historically. When priests, when they were problematic, one, were more than 52, 53% win rate, and two, just kind of a different baseline of swings. Like now, everyone can kind of do it.
Yeah, everyone can do it. Well, Discover is the meta now.
Yep.
Where
Scorpid is a
Discover
neutral.
generation, yep. That is the meta. And a lot of it is just about how it feels. And yes, Demon Hunter felt terrible, right? A lot of people are complaining about Demon Hunter because they had these overpowered cars that you couldn't play around. And similar in Priest as well. So it's just like, man, why can't we just go back to the good old days when you wouldn't get pissed off at this card that got generated by another card that got generated by another card? But that's the way it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
And there are certainly better ways to lose in terms of a feels bad kind of
Mm-hmm.
situation. But let's just see how this plays out. Like we don't even know yet, so you can have your pitchfork ready, but don't brandish it yet. Don't
Yeah.
just let's slow down.
I think to whatever extent you didn't have a pitchfork ready before this mini set came out, it's not gonna be significantly worse. We'll just put it that way. Than the balanced meta before that. Because remember, the after the adjustments in the pre mini set meta, right? Like the first meta of the year after they adjusted it, the win rates were like kind of bad still. Like I forgot what like the top classes win rates were, but they were like 54 like ish. And then the lower classes were like unplayable. It was like 50 like 45 and below. So it's looking so far like that won't necessarily be that won't be a problem for this meta, excepting possibly Paladin. I don't know how far Paladin's gonna fall, or if they're ever gonna do anything about it. But really, you should be happy Paladins are not in the meta as much because Paladins are, I think, as problematic as priests given their new cards in a different way. Um, but some of the other classes that you may really hate have gone down in win rates, and they're going to stay down. They're like Shaman and Warlock are both at 48%, and they're only going to drop if anything. They're probably not going to drop by much, but they may end up at 47. They're going to be one of the like bad classes as far as this meta goes, but still a playable class probably, just because of it's going to be a more balanced meta class balance wise. You're I like what they did with Demon Hunter because you remember what happened in the previous set, and it seems like Blizzard is finally learning. Um, what happened with the previous set is the Demon Hunters were ridiculous right off the bat as usual. Then they hit the button, and Demon Hunters were like 40, like 5% win rate, and just never moved after that because they hit the button and they hit the button real hard. Here, Demon Hunters even more dominant than they were before. But they hit the button and they're not pushing Demon Hunters down all the way to nothing. They're like, I don't know if they're trying to get to 50% or if they like are just pushing the button randomly and this time this is just how it happened to work out. But I like that Demon Hunters aren't disappearing because it is like it's a frustrating with whatever class, but it's still the new class, right? And it still does bring a different element to the arena. And I like being able to play Demon Hunter now and then.
You don't want a class to be trash or the scourge of arena. Like you don't want it to just be one of those two things. And finding that balance, which is admittedly very hard for Demon Hunter because they don't have a lot of these bad sets and bad cards to dilute the pool. You know, they were made very recently, and their power level reflects that. So it's definitely very, very hard to balance it. But Blizzard has to try to find a spot, and hopefully they somewhat got it this time because they sure as hell didn't get it in previous
In like none of the
adjustments.
previous metas. Like literally a whole
No,
year of bad Demon Hunter metas for one reason or another.
and it's unfortunate because, like you said, this is a class that people want to play, quote, normally at some point. and it is either this overpowered, overbearing kind of final boss type of thing, or it is just trash and you
Hmm.
can't pick it. And that is not good. Like
Yeah.
every class has had their time in the sun, every class has been bad, but every class is also through averages, um, just had their time to kind of shine and then be mediocre, and that's good, right? Like we want that nice, healthy middle class to exist, and we haven't seen it yet for Demon Hunter, and I'm hoping we see it here.
Yeah, and in case you're wondering about what drafting a demon hunter is like nowadays, right? Um, it's it's fine. Like I drafted one on Friday night, and I played against a bunch of demon hunters that did not, because it's really obvious when they have a pre-patch deck. It's just ridiculous. But you can also look at the stats on HS Replay for their top cards. You still get them. This is not like, it's not like they nerfed Demon Hunter and turned it into a neutral class, right? Like Qualified Warlord used to be seen in like 4.75% of decks. It's at like 2.9% now, and it's still going down, but it'll settle above 2%. That means they like have the offering rate of Qualifying Warlord. That's not bad. Consider how many Qualifying Warlords existed before the nerf. Seeing half of them is a pretty like light kind of like nerf as far as that goes. Cycle of Hatred went from 4% and is currently at 3%. Probably going to drop a little, just because our data's not fully with the new set yet. But again, that's down 25%. It'll go down to 50% at most. Expendable Performers is up. Expendable Performers is up from 2% to about 3%. So, what they did with Demon Hunters specifically, in case you're trying to figure out how to play around Demon Hunters, or just trying to figure out like what you should expect when you see a Demon Hunter, if it's a post-patch deck, there's pretty much equal numbers of Qualifying Warlord, Cycle of Hatred, Expendable Performers, and I think Ildari is the same percentage. Ildari is a little higher than the other ones, but they're all in the meta still, and they do still win games the same way they used to. They are still pretty much impossible to play around. So your strategy against Demon Hunters, like you'll still be frustrated facing Demon Hunters. It's just how Blizzard designed the class. It's terrible for the arena, but just be prepared for gigantic swings and be able to swing back. That's all you like. Once Demon Hunters hit turn 7, you got to be prepared for it, because their big giant class cards are Cycle of Hatred, Expendable Performers, which are turn 7, and Qualified Warlord, Ildari, Inquisitor, which are turn 8/9. So that's still their area of power, and they're still going to do crazy board flipping or game winning things on there, and you just have to. You have an entire game, right? You have an entire 7 turns to prepare for that and get enough cards and like figure out a game plan for when one of these things happens. So it's like you see the win rates. The win rates are not just from high rolling a deck with Demon Hunter. Like every Demon Hunter deck is going to have like 1 or maybe 1.5 of those ridiculous cards, which means that they're probably going to end up playing 1 against you. But you can recover from it, and they're no longer playing 3 against you, which was the problem in the previous meta. So you can beat them now, but you do have to beat the same things, because it's not like they nerfed any cards, and it's not like they like reduced the offering rate of any of these cards to nothing.
Yep. Okay. So that's sort of where we're at. It's kind of a shame that some classes always get left behind a little bit, and then they just feel like paladins right now feel pretty bad. I actually played a paladin post patch, and yeah, it felt pretty bad to me. So I was hoping to play a little bit more paladin. That's not going to happen. Oh well, I guess I'll just have to wait a little bit of time.
Yeah, I would not suggest anybody draft a paladin right now. Just looking at the win rates, they fell from like 52% to 47.2%, which is a fall of like almost 5%, and they're not done falling. So Paladin is going to be the one that's down there at 45% in the unplayable area. On the other hand, Shaman and Warlock are at 48%, so they may fall to like 47, 46 at most, probably just like 47, hopefully at 47, and still remain playable and just bad. Whereas the number 8 and number 9 classes right now are Hunter and Rogue at 47.5, but they're going to go up because they were buffed, and so those stats aren't fully baked in yet. So they're probably going to end up at like 48 or even maybe like 49. Probably closer to 48 than 49. But yeah, it's gonna be a good representation of different like types of classes, right? If you look at what is expected to be the top classes, it's currently looking like the top classes are going to end up being Warrior, Priest, Demon Hunter, Druid, and Mage. That's a pretty diverse set of what you're considering your tier 1 and tier 2 classes. Demon Hunter, Druid, and Mage have pings. Priest and Warrior have heals, and Druid also has a heal. If you look at playstyle, Druid and Demon Hunter and Warrior can all play aggressively. Priest and Mage can play control. Warrior can sometimes play control. Demon Hunter can sometimes play control. Like, you have a whole spectrum of playstyles represented in your tier 1 and tier 2 classes.
All right. You want to say anything more about the arena?
No, just now's a good time to jump in. And if you had jumped in, I guess the thing I want to talk about is the transition period, right? Whenever one of these patches hits that doesn't have a forced retirement of decks. During this transition period, because other good classes have been nerfed, including the top classes, and the bad classes have only been buffed to what should be normal, it means that the OP class from before, Demon Hunters, in the old decks, have an even larger advantage. So right now, and like especially a day or two ago, were probably the absolute hardest times to try to get a 12-win run. That's just how this system works. So if you had like good decks and you were running into stuff, or you've had bad experiences, jump in the meta again. If not today, wait a couple days, and while most of those decks get naturally played out of the meta, and you're gonna have a better experience. Swings are still on the high side compared to what they are historically, but they are not so bad, I'd say. So you do have to play preparing to be wiped off the board. Like, you can't have a game plan that's just like, I have a lot of high tempo cards, so I know I'm going to win the board, and then I'll just never leave the board until I win or lose. In that case, you're going to lose most of the time, and that's been the case for a while now. So that is still the case. But yeah, this transition period, watch out. Don't take too much from it. Use it as practice, and you can get like super serious about the arena in a few days. And then you'll have a better time.
Okay, that's it.
Do we have a question from the GOAT?
We do not.
We should have a question from the GOAT, or this is going to be the shortest Lightforge ever, clocking in at 33 minutes.
No, we've had shorter ones. It's just like recently we set this precedent. It's like, oh man, they're gonna go over an hour. I'm like, we at the beginning we're like, oh yeah, these things should be like half an hour to 45 minutes. This was like 5 years ago, and ever since then it's like, oh, an hour and 15 minutes.
That's hour and 15 is our average, I think.
Yeah, that's our average, and I'm like, we don't need that, man. We really don't. It's summer. People are trying to have I don't know, what, a hot girl summer, is that what they call it? I'm hip with the lingo, but yeah, people are trying to do that. Let's just let them get on with it, Then listen to us for half an hour, get the arena news, and then they can go play arena by the pool. I don't know.
All right, I'll give a shout out to Nintendo Switch is having a sale right now, like just for a couple more days. And they never have these gigantic sales. They have like individual sales, but there's a lot of games for like 50% or more off. I picked up Mario Rabbids for $10, and that's like a $60 game normally. Just something that got highly reviewed, but I never ended up playing it, and I'm playing through it right now, and it's pretty fun so far. I'm not too deep into it yet, but want to give a shout out to that whole Nintendo Switch sale. I hope they have more of it. All right. Okay. Fine. We'll end this right now. Until next week. I don't even know how to end it. I'm like looking at the time. I'm like, is this how we end it? Okay.
This is fine. This is what it should have been.
Okay. Until next week. This is Adwicta.
This is Merp. See you guys.